am I presenting just my, 1 second. I think I was just presenting the one thing, so I'm going to present my whole screen, sorry. All right, so this is an example of my vocabulary and context worksheet, I guess. I don't know. Record keeping page. So students would have this either online or print it out. Like you could print it out and have them fold in half and use it as their bookmark, for example. But anyway, they would all have this. And as they come across words that they don't know, I ask them to write them down. So they have to put the page number, if that's relevant. If it's an online text, maybe the paragraph number or the chapter or something like that. The word, and then the sentence where they found it, because that's the most important part, the sentence and context, because the goal of all of this vocabulary that we teach is to have students be able to figure out what the words mean within the context. That not only is that what is tested, but it's also a lifelong skill that they're going to use. So the sentence in context is very important. Sometimes I have a column before the definition that's like what I think it is. So they would put what they think the definition is, and then they will go and look it up and put the actual definition. So they all have these, and the number of words that you have them do is going to vary. It's going to be based on your class, your grade level, how often you're going to assess them on the words. Just that's completely up to you. But I always like to push students a little farther than maybe they're comfortable with. So for a high school regular class, I might choose 10 or 15 words every week or 2 weeks, and then kind of vary it from there. And then when you assess those words, to make it easy on you, you choose one or some of the words to assess, not all of them. So, for example, one thing that was probably my favorite way to do is they would submit to me their words, either on Classroom. I like to get them on Classroom because that way I can see their words and they still also have access to the words and definitions to study. Or you can have them give you like their filled out paper on the day of the assessment. So you would have the words, and then I would just choose one word, just one out of all of them to assess. Students would still have to know all of the words and still have to be able to define all the words because they don't know which word I would choose, for example. And then I would give them something like this graphic organizer. So I would put the word in the middle. I probably would not put the part of speech. I might ask them to do it. So down here, I would just put the word, and then they would have to do the rest. Sometimes I would ask the part of speech, sometimes not, just depending. But the definition, and then they would have to provide the other information. So synonyms, antonyms, sounds like would be maybe a sentence using the word, and then looks like would be a picture of the word. So they would do that all for just one of the words of their 10 or 15, and I would just assess that one word. So that makes the assessment part a little bit easier on the teacher. Another graphic organizer I like to use is this one. And again, you have links to both of these, so please look at those. Here you write the word on the bottom. And then there are quite a few things that it asks students to do with the word. I don't ask them number 2 and number 4, because that's this. Number 2 is the sentence in context, and number 4 is what you think it is. I would have them start with number 5 and write the definition. And it doesn't have to be the exact dictionary definition. It's just the definition of the word, whatever it means in context. Number 6, well, number 5 is the denotation. Number 6, the connotation of the word. Number 3, you can choose to do that one or not, but the part of speech. Synonyms, antonyms, sentence, a drawing for number 11, and number 10 is just kind of fun. It scrambled the letters in the word to make 3 new words. Sometimes I will require that, sometimes I wouldn't, depending on the word that I chose, because sometimes it's very difficult to make a word out of the letters that you have, depending on the length of the word. But I like this graphic organizer better than the other one. I don't know why, I just do. But either way, they have the example too. So on each of these, if I printed it out and gave it to the student, I would print 2 sides. So one being the blank side and the other being the example side, so they would know how to fill it out. I would go over it, but they would have that reference. I'm going to go over some more ways to assess vocabulary in a minute, but for right now, does anyone have any questions? You can unmute and just ask me, or you can put it in the chat, and that goes for basically anytime throughout the whole presentation. If you have a question, feel free to interrupt me. I don't mind at all. The difficult thing about presenting like this is that I can't see you, so I can't tell if you're completely asleep or if you're engaged, or I can't give you the teacher stare to make you ask me a question. So anyway, it's hard this way. All right, so moving on. I'll move on to grammar, and then we'll talk about ways to assess both of them together. Oh, that is not supposed to look like that. Okay, it says, just to read it to you, because I don't know why it looks all funny. Grammar to enrich and enhance writing, by Constance Weaver. Constance Weaver has an entire book dedicated to teaching grammar in context. And it's a wonderful resource if you want to check it out. But I've kind of pulled some main ideas here for you. So here are some things that she says. Teaching grammar divorced from writing doesn't strengthen writing and therefore waste time. And for each of these little snippets, there's this is a link right here that takes you to an article that kind of further explains if you want to look at it later. But I know that we've all heard that doing rote grammar drills is not best practice. That research and those ideas have been around for a while. Yet teachers still do that for whatever reason, whether because it's kind of easier to get the practice in, they think that way, or assessing grammar within writing it's a little bit time consuming. So there are several reasons why we don't do it, but I think that the idea is out there and well known that teaching grammar away from writing isn't best practice. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And that might be like a trigger for some people, depending on English teachers especially. So some real talk here. Few grammatical terms are actually needed to discuss writing. So as English teachers or as teachers in general, you may know all of the important terms like subordinate conjunction or coordinating conjunction, gerund, all of those grammar terms. However, if you are not an English teacher or not someone who is trying to teach grammar, you don't really need to know those terms to be able to use grammar correctly. There are plenty of successful writers who probably don't know the names of those rules. So when we're asking students to demonstrate these things, we need to try to not get so hung up on they know the name of what they do when they put a comma before and, if there's two complete sentences, rather than just they know that they should put a comma before and when there's two sentences. So that again might be a trigger for English teachers. I'm going to check back just every now and then to see if any questions are in the meet. Oh yeah, that's great. Second grade, yeah, you can adapt those organizers for any grade. Yeah, thanks for saying that, Lee. Okay, so sophisticated grammar is fostered in literacy-rich and language-rich environments. So in a minute, I'm going to show how we can talk to students about the grammar that they see in the writing that we assign, whether it be fiction, nonfiction, whatever. So that's what it means by literacy rich. So the more, it's a proven fact, the more that you read, the better you are at writing. And when you're reading novels, going back to the last slide, like the author doesn't put in here, hey, I'm using this subordinate conjunction so that I can blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. Like they just do it. And students pick that up. And so finding the concepts that we want students to learn, having them find them in the writing that they're in the reading that you assign, sort of helps them understand how the concepts are used. And then language rich, again, that's the same, like using it in their writing after they've seen it in others' writing. And again, those are links with all the research and more in depth about each of those concepts that I really encourage you to look at later if you have the time. But again, we only have an hour, so we don't have time really to go deeply into those. All right, and then now grammar instruction for writing should build upon students' developmental readiness. I don't know if any of you have heard of the book 180 Days or read it, but it's a pretty famous book. It's been out a few years now, and it's put together by a couple of English teachers, and it talks about their methods for teaching reading and writing. And they have found that the best way to teach reading and writing is through individual student conferencing and targeted grouping. So, for example, students are assigned a writing piece, and you call students to your desk, or you go to them, however you want to do it, and you talk to them about their writing, and you're going to see patterns in the things that they are struggling with or the things that they are really good at. If they never use a comma before a fanboy, then you know that that is something that you need to target with that student. But you also know there are other students in your class who always use commas with fanboys, and they get it and they know that. So it's not something that you have to teach to the whole class, but you teach it to that student. Or if you have a small group of students who need that, you can use targeted grouping. But the point is, just like with anything, it's important to teach the kids at their level. And so if that means taking the whole year to continually work on putting a comma before a fanboy, it doesn't mean you're not going to do anything else, but if you need to keep going back to that throughout the whole year for this one student, then that's what you do. If another student gets it after a couple of conferences, you can let that go and move on. So I just can't emphasize enough like how important it is for grammar and vocabulary really to target the individual student's needs. Just imagine if, well, in math too. So imagine that you had to complete 30 addition problems every day, but like we learned addition, in kindergarten or first grade, but here we are adults and we have to do addition problems, 30 addition problems every day. Like, first of all, we're going to hate every second of it. Second of all, we will probably begin to resent the fact that we have to do it. So it's the same thing. If we assign the rote grammar exercises, everybody has to do these 30 sentences where they put the comma in the right place. Again, if you know how to do it, you're going to be bored and you might even start to resent that exercise. So I can't stress that enough. I'm going to go back. Okay. I'm just checking the chat for questions. And again, if you need to just unmute yourself and ask, please do. Or if you have something to say, please do that as well. Your own experience or whatever. Okay. Well, I sort of talked about this already, but grammar is best talked about through reading and writing. And then the conventions taught in isolation seldom transfer to writing. So a kid can do those 30 sentences where they have to put the comma in the right place, but then you ask them to do it in their own writing, and maybe the transference isn't going to be there. And then this is something that is, I would say, definitely a trigger for English teacher. And you can see my little Bitmoji down there, guilty as charged. Marking corrections on students' papers does little good. And so that's where the writing conferences come in. So we're not just marking, hey, you should put a comma here, because what are they going to do? They're just going to put a comma there, and they don't care why. They're just doing it because you told them to. So when we have a conference, or even if we maybe put on the side of the paper like a star because there is an error, something like that, then that's going to make the students think about what and why a correction needs to be made. And again, there's that link for editing with some more information about that. And this is also this is something we don't talk about much, but instruction in conventional editing is important for all students, but you also have to consider home language and dialect. Recently, there's been more talk about the different kinds of language that we have in America, different dialects, different grammar structures, and the talk has been that we can't discount any particular grammar structure or way of talking or writing just because it isn't the way that we talk or write, I guess. So that it's something that you have to really think about as your students read and write, like the way that they structure their sentences. And there's also even been research and discussion about the fact that a lot of kids speak two different languages, even though both languages are technically English. It's become less of code switching, is what we kind of called it before, to acknowledging that they're really different languages because the structures are so different. So that's also something to think about. Just when you're talking to students, not to say, hey, this is wrong, don't do it this way, but maybe phrase it in a way that this is academic reading and writing, or this is academic writing, and this is how these grammar concepts are used in academic writing, which does not say that whatever kind of speech that they have at home is incorrect. It's just not the same kind of writing that you're teaching. I hope that makes sense. I tried to like phrase that in a way that's politically correct and like not offensive to anyone, but I think it's important to address. Checking the chat. Oh, Brandy's link. I think all of the links are the same for signing in. I've signed in with the same link every time, but maybe I did it incorrectly. Okay. And then as we're teaching this grammar, as we're conferring and helping individual students, progress may involve new kinds of errors as students try to apply new writing skills. But the important thing is that students are trying to apply new writing skills. So if applying one grammar skill sort of creates an error in a different grammar skill, that's okay. It's just something that we need to address. And grammar instruction should be included during various phases of writing. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And not just phases of writing, but different types of writing. Like I know that you've heard about writing to learn, writing to demonstrate learning, all the different types of writing a student does. And you can include grammar instruction in all of those. It does not have to be in only like official 3 drafts essay that they write. It can be just a journal writing, and you could include some grammar instruction there. Okay, so now how do we apply all of these concepts? I have some links here to resources that I have used to teach the grammar concepts. So I'm going to click this first one. So this is just one example, but so you teach the concept briefly, like a mini lesson, or in an individual conference, just however it needs to be taught. And this has quite a few topics at the, like, not topics, but ways of using commas at the top. I probably would not do all of these at once, depending on the level of the student, but this is just an example. So you're teaching the concept just so that they know what the concept is. Like, how do you separate items in a series? How do you set off introductory material? Like, how do you use those? So you're just teaching those, the concept, plain and simple. And then if you're in high school, this document is useful because these are the concepts that are most frequently seen on the English portions of standardized tests. So you could take, like, you could kind of use this as a guide as to the things that you might want to emphasize in your grammar instruction. But then here's the important part. The students are going to find examples from their reading, and this document is very much like the vocabulary and context document. So again, this has a whole lot of comma rules on it, and I probably would not do all of these at once, so just bear that in mind. Do what you need to do for your kids. But let's say you were talking about introductory clauses and how to use a comma with them. You would have students, in whatever it is they're reading, like whatever it is, it doesn't matter. If you're a social studies teacher and they are reading their social studies textbook, you can have them find this. Anyway, introductory clause. So they're reading, they find the page number where that is used, write it down, and then they write the sentence that uses that skill, or sorry, concept. And that's it. So they're finding it in the wild, I like to say, so that they can see how other writers apply these concepts that they've learned. And again, on this one, I mean, yes, it's kind of like stating the name of the role, like introductory clause in a series between adjectives, that kind of non-restrictive elements, like that. If you say non-restrictive elements, most people probably, especially students, aren't going to know what that means. But you just use those terms to kind of reference what you're talking about in the moment, and they don't really have to remember that long term. So anyway, they find that, however many examples you want them to find, it's up to you. So they find it in their reading. Then they're going to use the concept in their own writing. So what I have linked here, I created this for an AP English 12 class. So there are way more concepts on this one sheet that I would probably teach to any other, like I would assess for any other grade level or class. So again, like I've said, with all of this, do what makes sense for your students, the number of skills, whatever. So here, I asked them, this would be like, I guess, the summative assessment. So they're writing an essay about whatever it is they need to write an essay about. I'm not doing this just to assess the grammar. Like, they're already going to be writing this analysis essay because that's what we're talking about in our writing unit, for example. And so I'm just going to insert these grammar skills into something they're doing, like making it practical, not taking it out of the practical use in writing. And I am going to ask them to use each of these concepts and again, in whatever way that you see fit for your students, however many times you want them to use it. So the thing that this is teaching is teaching them how to use the grammar concept, but it's also teaching them sentence variety, which you're not even talking about. Like, you don't even have to say those words, but by using these concepts in their writing, they're going to have sentence variety. And it's going to take their writing to a higher level of complexity. Okay, so this is just one example. And then, let me see. Yeah, so that's just one way to do it. So here's a couple more ways that you can integrate this grammar and vocab. I was just checking the chat to make sure that there's no questions. Integrate this grammar and vocab in writing tests that they do every day. Like, whether it be an exit slip, an entrance slip, a journal, the answer to a question, whatever it is. So practical applications of these. So first, we have constructive responses. Like, every subject, every class, every teacher uses constructed response, just because that's our life of standardized testing, right? We have to. We just can't get away from it. So I would ask students to use grammar concepts and vocabulary in these constructed responses. So if I'm talking about, I'm just going to use the same example, commas before fanboys, I'll ask them to do it one time or two times in the paragraph that they're writing as their bell ringer or their exit slip or whatever it is. I'll ask them to integrate one or two of their vocabulary words, and this could be their choice, into their constructive response. So not just testing these concepts on Friday and not looking at them for the rest of the week, but every day kind of integrating them into what you're doing on a daily basis. And if you are using like student conferencing, and like maybe each student has their own grammar skill that they're working on, they should know what that is and have it written down somewhere or whatever. Like, they should know what they're working on, and you could say, use the skill that you are working on in the constructed response. It doesn't have to be the same, everyone doing the same thing. And then essays, I gave you an example of like an assignment sheet I would use with essays. I used that like maybe 3 years ago, so I might do some revision before I used it again, just because I've learned a little bit more. But that covers the main idea of it, I guess. But like in any essay that they're writing, and if you're an English teacher, you're probably having your kids write essays. I mean, I would think. And then teaching others. So when students are revising or peer reviewing, you can ask them to find the grammar concepts in other students' writings. And let's say they don't find the comma before fanboy that you want them to integrate. So students can suggest, hey, you can combine these two sentences and use a comma before the fanboy, and that's going to vary your sentence, and it's going to help the kid learn, both kids learn how to use that concept. Okay, so any questions about that? If you do, just let me know. Wait, I want to go back. Before I finish, I'm going to show you this one again. So I feel like I can read your mind and you're thinking, wow, that's going to be difficult to grade. Maybe not difficult, but tedious, time consuming to grade. So I'll just tell you how I did it for this big, huge one where I had all of these concepts. So I had these little half sheets of paper printed out in front of me. And as I looked at students' essays, I would just put a little tally mark when they used each of these concepts. And to make it easier for me, sometimes I would have them highlight, like put a little highlight, like where they used a comma between independent clauses, just so I could find them. And so I would put a tally mark where they did it correctly. And I would mark on their papers if they did it, if they like marked a comma, but it was incorrect. And then I would use those tally marks to score. But I would also give them a chance, like if they use the comma between independent clauses incorrectly, I would give them a chance to revise. So, if you've used standards-based grading, it's sort of the same concept. Like, give them chances to improve. You don't just give the test and then that's it. And if they don't know how to do it, you just move on. Like, they get chances to revise. And then I was pretty much paperless, so you can have them highlight on physical paper, but then on Google Docs or whatever, they can highlight as well and like put that and say that's independent clauses. It's not, but you get what I'm saying. So they would label them, and then if it was incorrect, I would just put an X and reply. If it was correct, I wouldn't do anything, or you can mark it however you want. But then here, if it has an X, they know that they need to correct it in some way, and then they would reply blah 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 with their correction. So that's just kind of one way I would do it on a Google Doc to make it a little bit easier for me. Okay, so I feel like I talked really fast and I went through a million things. So if you have any questions that you think of later and you want to ask me, or like as you're going, if you go back and you go through some of those articles that discuss each of those things that I talked about, and you have questions about that, please feel free to email me, ask me. I also have just a little feedback form that's just for me. It doesn't have anything to do with this, like with the whole big training that you have to fill out, like the form to get credit. If you want to do that, I would appreciate it. And does anyone have any questions right now, or comments or whatever? And I see on here some friends that I know teach elementary school, teach high school, and I hope that you can see how these strategies and methods can be applied to different grade levels. You just tailor them to whatever concepts you have to teach in first grade even. Or you cut back on the number of concepts you teach at a time, or whatever. It really can be all grade levels. All right, so I'm going to be here until 11:30. If you have any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat or unmute your mic and we can talk about it. Don't forget to do the link to do the sign-in thing. Let me see. 10:30 to 11:30. Okay, here's the 10:30 to 11:30 one. I don't know if you guys ever got that one. It's 10. Did I get it? Yes. Oh, good. Brittany and Kelly, I'm glad that you, yeah, we all need reminders because like I put on there, I put guilty as charged because we all kind of go back because it's easy. It's easy to do the rote practice sheets. It doesn't take a whole lot of prep or grading time, but we have to think about what is working for our students and like what is going to help them learn the skills. So yeah, thank you for saying that. Okay, so I'm going to mute myself. If you have anything, just let me know. Thank you guys so much for coming, and have a great rest of your day.
Dana, I can just use the mic. I don't know who the presenter is for this. Are you doing the tech tools for the digital classroom at 12:30, or is that somebody else?
In this room?
It's in room 2.
Oh, no, I'm not doing that.
Okay. Not that I don't want to go to your sessions or anything, but
no, yeah, I know. We talk about it like every day.
Yeah. And I'm just trying to like branch out, and I didn't look at the presenters for any of these sessions. I just looked at the description and the title, and I was like, "Oh, that sounds good." And of course, both of the sessions that I've been to have been yours.
Yay!
So you're welcome, but that's kind of a compliment. But
right,
I just want to
talk about it anytime. So go do something else.
Yeah, and if I could get something to bring, then that would be better than just.
Yep.
So
I don't have any more today. So I'm going to be checking out some other people too. So
I was at home for your first session or whatever, and I was getting ready to log into mine. It started in like 15 minutes. I was ready. Whatever. The Google Meet for your session, a screen pops up and it's like, you need to check your connectivity for and it crashed. I was like, at the front door. And so I tried to restart my computer and see if I could get connected to the internet. I have never gotten kicked off of my internet before, ever. And it would not connect. So I tried running a hotspot off my phone, and it wasn't strong enough to stream and, toggle. So I have on like a t-shirt, and I brushed my hair this morning, but I definitely still have my pajama pants on. And I couldn't get connected. And so I'm like, crap. And I ran to school. I drove like 80 miles an hour to get to school, and I made it for my session, and I was sweating and out of breath. It was a wreck.
My gosh.
But it's fine. And Chris Adams just came in my classroom as he was walking, and I'm like, please don't judge me, but I still have a window open.
Yeah. Chuck's there too. He's waiting for Anna to get out of band practice. Hey, go have a look at my room and see what you think. I started setting it up.
With all your desks. I know that makes me sad.
No. Yeah. I don't even want to talk about that right now, but
it'll be fine. It's just maybe just part of the year.
Yeah, I hope so.
Have you started getting stuff together, or had you started already?
For teaching sophomores?
No, just your flexible seating stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yes. There's a few chairs in there that I took a while ago. Before yeah, I mean, anyway, I took them a while ago, and I have some more stuff at home, but I'm just gonna wait to bring the rest of the stuff I have at home, like my rugs and like pillows and stuff.
when
I'm
you're
just gonna
alone.
keep them here until further notice, I
Yeah.
guess.
So sad. So sad. I bet our desks have to be in rows too.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they do. I think that's what I heard. I was at the co-teaching PD yesterday, and that's what people were saying. They had to be in rows and everyone facing the same direction. And if they're not facing the same direction, they definitely have to wear a mask. So, anyway.
Boring. Okay. Well, I'm gonna go eat
Okay.
lunch.
All right.
Adios, amigo.
All right, bye.